Welcome to The Writing Place with Authors Alcove. I am your host, Agnes Wolf. In this episode, we are thrilled to welcome Fiona Ballard, a mystery author whose life journey has taken her from the heart of the NHS to the world of creative writing. Fiona has been married for 40 years and is a mother and grandmother. She successfully balanced motherhood with a career spanning over 25 years in the NHS. Her foray into writing began with a thoughtful gift of an entry fee for a story competition. Since then, Fiona has authored a semi-autobiographical work, Taking the Bandage, a short story collection titled The Wedding Dress. We should talk about the cover. And her debut adult fiction novel, Look Both Ways, released in autumn 2022. Her latest book, which is the book we're going to be discussing, is Inscription. It was released January 2024. So welcome, Fiona.
Hello, Agnes. Nice to meet you. Nice to put a face to a name.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and what got you into the writing world?
I certainly will. So I came into writing with a gift from a relative who wanted me to enter a competition, an American competition, New York Midnight. And the entry was very positive, and it got round to the fourth round, and the judges were very keen that I pursue my writing venture. So I took their words. I didn't really enjoy writing the story for the competition because you don't have any choice on your genre, and they give you the three things. They give you a genre, an action, and an object. And you have to write for 48 hours on that subject and submit to a word count. And I had the worst possible combination for me to start my writing journey. And I'd written as a child. I had an overactive imagination, and I really struggled with the three things that this competition gave me. So it was a fantasy, a jam jar, and an armored vehicle. And I had to write for 2 days on this subject. Anyway, it did quite well. And I thought when I'd finished that it would be something that maybe I could pursue in my retirement. And the reason for writing the first novel, or the first semi-autobiographical book, was as a legacy for the grandson, so that he knew how grandma and granddad got together, the complications, and how I did some survival antics while I was growing up. So I put it all together in a book, and the grandchild came up with the title, and Taking the Bandage was born, and that really launched my career in writing. So I joined a writers group, and we have the Portsmouth Authors Collective. And with the support of the group, we promote each other's work. We go out to book fairs, we go to festivals, we go to markets, and we, as a group, learn from each other. So the writing process now is a little bit more developed, and is where I ended up writing Inscription, which took about 14 months to write. We have a critique group as part of the collective, and the critique group will take a chapter or a chunk of your work, and it'll come back covered in red ink. And from that, you learn how to structure your novel in quite a crude way, and it is quite brutal, but it's a good system. So the book came with some of the critique, and they were very positive about what I was writing about. It's quite an emotional book in parts, and it tugs on the heartstrings. If you read some of the reviews, then people will understand when they read it why the reviews are like they are.
So do you mind just sharing just the basic plot of Inscription without any spoilers?
Sure. As you'll see on the front cover, we have a ring, and it's a ring that is a wedding ring, and we have two inscriptions on the inside of the band. And there is a wedding date and a birth date, but the birth date is 3 months before the wedding. This belongs to a lady called Beatrice, and Beatrice, when she passes away, has written her will, but then she changed it at the last minute. And the person that relates to that birth date does a search, and he traces her. And he feels quite aggrieved that his mother hasn't really left him anything other than the ring. And the mother, when she was, I think she's about 17, she gets banished to France by her father and the local priest. And she's banished because of the shame that she's going to bring the family. So she's sent away as a governess to a family in northern France. And when she comes back, she has to give up the job because obviously the pregnancy then starts to show. She has to give up the job, comes back to the UK, and she's put into a mother and baby home, and the baby is taken at birth. She has no choice because she's still underage. And the father, they try to make a go of it, but they're very, very different people. And she wants something different for her life and tries to make good with what she has, but realizes that the relationship will not last. And so she has a bit of freedom, and she heads to the Dorset coast and sets up home down there, where she meets her future partner. And he's not a very strong character. And she's quite a domineering character. And the premise is whether he will step out of the shadows to stand up to this newcomer into the family, and how the three siblings react, because they all react differently to suddenly they have a step person in the family. So they decide that collectively they don't really want him in their little unit, and it's how they go about trying to get rid of him and who he aligns himself to the most. So yeah, I haven't given you any spoilers.
Good. And so when you had to do some research for this, because this has a little bit of history and all of that, what type of research did you do?
I had to do several types of research. I did one into the mother and baby units. So that was a very similar thing to the Magdalen laundries that happened in Ireland during the 1930s and 40s. I had to do some research into the life of a Catholic priest and the kind of things he might have got up to, or illegally. And I had to do some research into the type of family based in northeast England, how they would have gone about trying to maintain honour within the community. And of course, having a child with a baby out of wedlock would have been absolutely a no-no. So Inscription is quite complex book, delving into relationships. So the relationship and the hold that the priest has over the family, and then he's asking for money to pay for what he does, and then the relationship between Beatrice and her sister Rosina. Rosina was going to become a nun, and she meets the love of her life on a boat heading to the Philippines. And so we introduce a very minor character, but it's an important character because the sister was all for becoming a nun under the influence of the priest at home. And so she becomes a woman in her own right, and she meets the love or the very first love. She's never had love before. She meets him on the boat to the Philippines. So there's lots of little stories within the story.
So while you were doing your research, what was the most unusual piece of information you uncovered?
I think the most unusual information that I wasn't aware of was the corruption of the family priest.
Yeah.
Delving into that side was very uncomfortable.
So when you're looking at your book, what character do you feel was your favorite character to write about? And what makes them special to you?
I think Beatrice was probably my favourite, who is the central character, but I allowed Beatrice to pass away right at the beginning, and then I go back in time to how she as a child grew up and left home, and well, she was forced out of the home. I think she's probably my favourite character because she has guts, and she has determination that she won't let these people ruin her life. She will go and have a life. And it would be very easy for her to move back in with the parents and become subservient to them. But she doesn't. She takes herself off. She says goodbye to her sister, as she doesn't know if she will see her sister again because it's unlikely she could afford to come back to the UK. But I think, yes, Beatrice is probably my favourite character.
Speaking about writing your characters, how do you personally develop your characters?
I have a crib sheet with 20 parts to it. It allows you to develop each part of the character without missing out elements. And I found it much easier to develop my characters in my previous novel using this structure. I'm not a, in England we say you're either a plotter or a pantser.
Mm-hmm.
So I plot. So before I start, I have 3 acts of a play, and I have 3 scenes in each act. So I plot it out with my characters.
When you are writing about your characters, how much backstory do you create before you start writing your story? And how much of it actually makes it into the final book?
I think a lot, because what I do is I plot each chapter and then write each scene, and all those scenes have to have a backdrop. So that by creating the structure, you're allowing your elements to stare at you on the page and give you that direction. So when I'm looking, I have a beautiful view out of my office window of a spinnaker tower. Do you know what I mean by spinnaker tower?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, you can have a look at this.
Okay, we will.
I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but this is what I look at for my inspiration. Hang on. I don't know if you can see through.
Right now it's just light. Oh, yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's neat.
So that is in the next room is my office, and that's where I get. I spend many days looking at that, getting my inspiration, whether from the colours and the different birds and the different noises. It's a very inspirational view.
So you actually have traveled quite a bit, and I noticed like your background, it looks like mountains in the background. So has that influenced any of the settings in your plot? You're traveling?
The Look Both Ways was set in Oman, in Muscat, and the lady ends up in Plymouth. I couldn't use Portsmouth because it was too close to home. So she ends up in Plymouth. which is another naval town. So that wasn't so bad. But yes, the definitely use locations around here and conversations. I'm often in cafes and listening into conversations, and I think I must write this down because I could use that, what I've heard, So local writers know me in the cafes, and sometimes I just need to sit on my own and write. And if it's quiet enough, I can do that. But I have to say, I get distracted by conversations in public places because I'm thinking of dialogue and how that would fit into my next book.
I can definitely relate to that. Like I'll be in the middle of something and then somebody will say something. I'm like, I wasn't in this particular world today. I was in a different world.
Yes.
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 So you shared a very interesting story to me before we started, and you already talked about the cover for Inscription, with the ring and the inscriptions in the ring. There's two different type of inscriptions. But what I found interesting is you were talking about the cover of the wedding dress, which is, well, first just share what the wedding dress is, and then share about the cover.
So the wedding dress is a story set in Normandy, just after the war, when things were pretty tight financially for a lot of the local families. And my story starts in a bar, and the family, the mother is a seamstress, and she has to make a wedding dress out of something, and she doesn't know where to get the material. She has no access to any nice material that she could use for her daughter's wedding dress. The daughter gets sent to England to work on a hop farm, making cider press type thing, making apples in cider and hops for beer, picking hops. And she leaves behind two men who are twins, and she's undecided when she leaves which one she likes the best. So she's obviously, by the time she comes back, the mother has made the wedding dress, and she has to decide which one she is going to marry. So it's I won't say much more because it's a short story, and there's obviously something happens that affects her decision. So we needed to find a wedding dress to go on the front of this book. And with my siblings' permission, we found that my mother's wedding dress was made using parachute silk, and we were able to digitize it because obviously it was a very, very old photograph. And we were able to get it to proof on the front of the book. The other three stories in the wedding dress. One is about a politician, and I can't tell you who, but you'll guess from the descriptions and the behaviour which one in recent years that might have been. And that's called The Red Dress. And then there's one about a box of chocolates that come to life, and they all have their own personalities in this box, and they get put into a fridge, which is their worst nightmare, and they are passed around a table at a chocolate tasting event, put into a fridge with some pizzas, and of course they're in a different box to the pizzas, and they make an escape. It's completely, out of my comfort zone. But I just had this idea that all these chocolates had great personalities, and what they could do, how they could escape, and find their friend who had gone missing and was half eaten.
That's cute. So, being a writer, I'm assuming you have been a reader your entire life. Is that correct?
Yes.
What was your first favorite book that you read that you remember just really sticking with you?
I think I was very, when I was 8, 9, 10, very into horses and riding. And I remember there was a series of books about a horse called Flicka, Flicka, maybe. And it might have been the surname of the author was, I think, O'Hara. And I remember being absolutely wrapped up in these stories. I just wanted to buy more and more of the series because I could identify with the young girl in the book. You know, I wanted to be that young girl with all these horses at her disposal. So I was very influenced by that. And even younger, my older siblings always had Enid Blyton books. So about the famous five or Swallows and Amazons, any of those kind of top children's books. And because I was the fourth of 5 siblings, I used to get all their hand-me-downs. So when they finished, when it was appropriate, then I would have their books.
That's wonderful. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me today. But before you go, I do want to ask one last question, and it's the question I often ask everyone. What is one piece of advice you would give to a not yet published author?
I would say, don't try and edit your own work. Seek somebody outside your family, seek a professional editor or proofreader. I would say, don't be discouraged if you send that to 30 different companies and publishers and you don't get an acceptance. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your story. It's just going into this huge maelstrom of books that are swimming around waiting to be published. And it doesn't mean that your story is any less worthy. It's just they are inundated with stories and manuscripts. And it could be, I sent off Inscription only the first 40 pages and they made a decision on the first 40 pages.
Nice.
And so I would say, don't give up. You don't necessarily have to have a big publishing company. You can do it yourself. I did the wedding dress myself. Probably shows actually that, but I was quite new to it then. I didn't have a publisher for that. I did that purely through Amazon.
Thank you so much, Fiona, for being part of my show. I truly do appreciate it. I also want to thank my listeners. If you have been listening for a while, please rate my podcast. This allows my podcast to get before my listeners, but also for my authors' books to get before more readers. If you enjoyed this episode, you might also enjoy my conversation with writer Anna Bell. She's the author of the mystery book, The Kill Lists. Again, I had the privilege of talking with Fiona. Can you pronounce your last name?
Ballard.
Yes, thank you. Because it's not rolling off my tongue very well. She is a mystery author of the book Inscription. You can find more information on her website, ballardsbookshelf.com. Thank you again, Fiona. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Agnes, and I wish you well.
Thank you for joining us at Authors Alcove, the Writing Corner. We hope today's discussion has inspired and informed your writing journey. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review to help us reach more writers like you. And remember, we are brought to you today by the letter K, as in Knowadays, K-N-O-W, knowadays.com, a company that offers many courses from how to become a freelance writer to how to become a proofreader and editor. Also, I'm always appreciative of any of you who support me on Patreon. You can find the links in the show notes. Also, you can check out me at Authors Alcove, the Healing Place, where authors share about their books on healing and recovery. You can also find me at the Authors Alcove, the Reading Nook, where we talk about reading fantasy, sci-fi, and the occasional horror. Until next time, keep writing, keep creating, and we'll see you back in the Writing Corner.